Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 129 of ReelBlend, a podcast that would never accept a Zoom invitation to a seance. My name is Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and I am joined, as always. Well, wait, before I get to the introductions, let me let you guys know. For episode highlights, for episode 129, you guys should know this by now. This is what we do. We're going to do Joe Wright's The Woman in the Window, starring Amy Adams, has finally found distribution, but not where you think it was supposed to go. We're going to be reviewing David Ayer's film, The Tax Collector, and then Amy Seimetz is joining us to discuss her directorial film, She Dies Tomorrow. Gabe, directorial debut?
I think she did some shorts before this. I think it's her feature film debut. I will double check.
Yes, She Dies Tomorrow. I want to quickly point out that we're recording this in full transparency before we actually have sat down with Amy, and we of course use the hashtag if it happens. So God forbid something should go wrong tomorrow when we're going to sit down with her. There's a chance she might not be in the show, but we expect to have her as part of the show later on. And when I say we, I mean Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C., sporting his ReelBlend merch. Hi, Kev, how are you?
My dad made this.
He did, yes.
Shout out to my father.
As fantastic gifts. And then the other person in the third chair, Jake Hamilton, Fox 32 Chicago, sporting his a reason again to watch the YouTube stream, his Solo A Star Wars Story. Now, did you buy that, or did they?
No, they only made one of those.
John. So it's Solo.
Yeah.
Did you buy it?
No, they gave it to me at the junket.
They gave it to you at the junket?
Yeah.
You didn't give it back? So, plugs. Yes. Oh, Gabe, yes.
This is Amy's second feature. She directed a feature back in 2012 that looks like it went to South by. And she's done a bunch of TV and a few shorts.
So Amy, people will know her from Upstream Color, and she was most recently in the Pet Sematary reboot. She played the wife, and fantastic actress and a strong director, and we will talk to her about She Dies Tomorrow. So plugs for everybody who's tuning in. We have two great ways that people can interact with the show, interact with each other. There's a Facebook community page that people can go to. There's also a strong subreddit, the ReelBlend subreddit that has 30 some odd members who have joined it, and they're starting new conversations on the regular. So I added Reddit to my phone as an app because I never really knew how to work Reddit. Reddit confuses me sometimes. It's got a lot of stuff going on, and it's hard to sort of keep track of where people are posting, and they seem very tech savvy. So I put it on my phone, but I'm able to go right to the ReelBlend page and see the conversations that they're starting. And so it's a great community that they're building there. They are doing like weekly threads as well too, like conversations about our blend games and stuff. You guys should definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. We have our own YouTube channel. That's another big thing that we've started recently. ReelBlend has two of its own YouTube channels. One is just for the video streams of the full shows. One is called YouTube Clips, and we're pulling out segments from the show, like the blend game and conversations that we may be getting into about topics on the show that are really intriguing to us. Of course, you can download all of us on an audio level wherever you get your normal podcasts. And God, the plug section is getting really long.
I cannot keep track of this show anymore.
I know.
I just show up once a week.
Where can we find the real show we do? This
where is the actual show itself?
It's here. It's right. It's right here. Yeah, wherever you get podcasts.
I'm just kidding.
We have a premium channel now. Let's see. What does Gabe say about this? We have some exclusive ReelBlend content as part of our brand new ReelBlend premium subscription. These are going to be shows that we're going to record in addition to the main show. So you'll always get the main show for free, which is going to include our interviews and the blend games and all that stuff. Like you're still going to get all that. But for people who want more ReelBlend, who really enjoy the hosts, we're going to conduct these additional interviews, not interviews, but conversations between all of us. Last week, we had such a fun time going back over the origin of the show, talking about how the four of us came to meet and put this show together. And then for this week's ReelBlend premium episode, for people who have taken the plunge and decided to join us on the other side, we are going to be discussing the Academy Awards from 1995, which has come up a lot on the show. It's the year that Forrest Gump beat four superior films in Pulp Fiction, Shawshank Redemption, Quiz Show, and Four Weddings and a Funeral, I think was the other one. So I'll have to double check. Oh, come on. That's better than Forrest Gump. So anyway, go if you want to sign up for the ReelBlend premium show, go to bit.ly/ReelBlend premium to sign up. You'll get a bonus episode every Monday and a bi-weekly newsletter that I'm going to be writing filled with all sorts of fun entertainment. Okay, enough of me talking. Weekly poll. So I forget whose idea was the weekly poll, but it was about Amy Adams. And it was if you could give her an Oscar, because Amy Adams has been nominated a bunch of times, has never won an Oscar. Which of her performances would you reward? And I'll tell you guys right off the bat, and then Jake, you got to tell me which one you think came in second place.
Oh, that's not fair.
Arrival dominated.
Yeah,
it wasn't even close. Arrival got 70% of the votes.
Honestly, it would have gotten more.
And the funny thing is, not even nominated. That's the performance of these four that I put down that she didn't even get a nomination for. And everybody thinks that she deserves the Oscar for it. And again, well deserved. She was incredible in Arrival. It's a brilliant film. Here are the other three that we gave people. I want you to tell me which one came in second. Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. Mm-hmm. David O. Russell's The Fighter. And Doubt. And I forget who directed Doubt.
I want to say... I'm going to say The Master.
It was The Fighter. And I was surprised about that because The Fighter to me stands out as Christian Bale's movie and Mark Wahlberg's movie.
Never underestimate an accent.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So The Fighter accent, packing the cat in the yad.
17% for The Fighter, 6.5% for Doubt, and 5.8% for The Master. Okay, I'm going to divert just for a second to focus on this, and then we'll come back to Amy Adams. I watched the clip of baby Jake directing all these, or interviewing all these people. Jake, tell them about the video that you posted on your
it was just an old highlight reel. The reason I sort of came across it was because Kevin and I got to interview Seth Rogen earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
And I was trying to think, what was the first time I got him? And it was for Pineapple Express. He was paired with Franco. And so I was like, I have video of that somewhere, not the full interview, but I put together this highlight reel when I was a kid, when I was just starting out of some of my bigger interviews. And I was like, I know it's somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And so I went and once I started watching that clip again, I was like, this is kind of with my oversized vests and my undone tie and my rolled up shirts. It just made me laugh. And so I took it and put it on social media because I thought people would get a laugh out of it.
It's a very curated look by you, for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is because you had Viola Davis from Doubt in that package. Yeah. Is she the only one you got?
No, I got everybody. Meryl Streep's in that package too. If you go back because Meryl Streep's in the package twice. No, I didn't get Hoffman. Okay. But I got Amy Adams, Meryl Streep, Viola Davis. I think just those three.
Did you guys ever get Hoffman?
I got Hoffman in Toronto for the movie he directed.
Kev, did you ever get him?
No. The only time I ever saw Philip Seymour Hoffman in person was Lauren and I went and saw him on Broadway with Andrew Garfield in Death of a Salesman.
Wow.
And one of the biggest regrets that we have is apparently... Because Lauren and I usually go out to the stage doors and we try and meet the actors. Apparently, I think he was one of the people who actually went out there and we didn't know at the time. I never got to meet him. And you guys know how I feel about him. I think Along Came Polly is the best performance he's ever given. I think it's brilliant. But
he's given some amazing performances.
But I know people will go more dramatic. I just think Along Came Polly is that perfect sweet spot of him as an actor, I think. But
anyway, circle back to Amy Adams, who absolutely gives 4 Oscar-worthy performances in The Master, The Fighter, Arrival, and Doubt. And unfortunately, we live in a world where she does not have an Oscar. We will discuss her next possible attempt at getting an Oscar or some recognition from the awards perspective on the other side of our interview. But before we get into the talking points of the week, let's throw a 2-hour interview with Amy Seimetz on behalf of her new film, She Dies Tomorrow.
If it happens.
So I would really like to start here in that I think you are a fantastic actress, and I've really loved everything that you've done up to this point. You've made some really excellent choices. But so far, you have not directed yourself. And I'm really curious if that's something you could ever see yourself doing, where you would take a lead role in something that you direct as well.
I've done it before. I don't like it. I've done it before, and they were directorial decisions for me to act in it. One of them being this short when we lived in Miami, and the reason I did that was because it was a 5-year-old little girl, and I wanted her to be not self-conscious, and so I felt like I had to play her mother in order to direct her. you know, because I just let her say whatever she wanted to say. It was like a 5-year-old mumblecore movie. I'm going to put these on because this is a podcast, correct? Sorry.
It is.
Yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And so so that was a directorial decision. And then in the Girlfriend Experience, I mean, I wasn't a lead character, but I played Riley's sister. And that was mostly because Riley and I just as human beings, when immediately we met, were just like very sister-like, it's very sweet. We have a very sweet like friendship. And so I was like, this is going to be hard to find with, casting. So I'll just play her sister. And hire myself on my own television show. But I don't really like it unless I feel like it's going to get a performance out of the other actor that I feel like I can get out of them by being in the scene. But it's much easier for me to, even acting with like Riley or even acting with the 5-year-old, it's like I was constantly thinking like about directing and not doing the best job I think I could do as an actor. That makes sense. Thinking about what was happening in the scene too much.
Mm-hmm.
Amy, I'm interested in knowing, like, you've been directed by a lot of directors, and I would imagine that when you're directed by a lot of different directors, you learn how you want to be treated as an actor, what you want to be told as an actor in a scene. So what elements do you pull from your experiences of being directed that you then give to your actors so that they have an experience that you kind of like built throughout your career of like learning from these directors? Like, what's something that you pull from them and that you push into your actors to make their environment as comfortable as possible?
There's probably a lot more that I'm not conscious of, but I try to make it feel on set for everyone, whether you're a lead actor or like a day player, that there's no pressure, like that, even though, your job is to perform these lines and whatever, but to sort of ignore, like understand that, like, especially with day players, that they're going to be anxious, and honestly, having played, supporting parts, it's a lot harder to jump onto a set that you don't know and have like a one line that you just blurt out in the middle of a scene than it is to like, I'm not taking away from people that have monologues, but it's actually quite difficult because as often as I do it, there's still this sort of like this waiting game of like, my line's coming up, and then you say it and like you're trying to do it in the best way you can, but there's this feeling of like, now it's my turn, so I guess it's sort of respecting that everyone has that and understanding that, but not, but allowing them to just sort of calm down and allowing the first take, everyone to just feel like, to just like sink into the scene, as opposed to giving them too much direction at first, so that like there's so many ideas in their head before they even have a chance to sort of sink into the scene, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
I definitely want to bring up something that struck me about She Dies Tomorrow is that you're very comfortable not leaning on dialogue. There are long passages that are just, there's a lack of dialogue. You lean on music. Maybe because I was listening to it with headphones, some outstanding Foley work with just sounds of water and glass, a lot of props that carry you through. And I want to just have you talk about your decision to let your visuals do a lot of the storytelling.
Visuals and sound. I have the luxury not only to work with actors who can emote without saying anything, and I knew who I was going to be working with, so I knew that I could depend on them to be telling the story without having to say words. But in addition to that, it's like Jay Keitel, I've known who's my cinematographer, for like 17 years now, and we've worked together all that time, and knew that he like I can lean on him visually. But then also I knew that Mary Ellen Porto, who did my second season of The Girlfriend Experience as a sound designer, I knew that I could lean on her and that she was going to be doing sound design. All of these things that for a budget of my size, some sound, and it's not really, it's not very common that you can rely on such a high level of sound on this level of budget, but I knew that I could, and I knew that it was going to be amazing because Mary Ellen is amazing. And so, and I love, well, one of the things, I love horror movies because of the sound design and because of the music. And in addition, I could lean on the Mondo Boys, who also did my second season, and their music is incredible. And so what I love about horror or playing around with horror is the sound design aspect of it. And even though there's no dialogue, it's like, I love filling like atmosphere and sort of playing with, we did a lot of playing with sort of dropping sound floors out to make you feel stuff, and then building them like rapidly up and then dropping them out. So even though there's no, dialogue, it's still an emotional roller coaster through the sound design and then the visuals as well.
You speak about atmosphere. I love your use of color in the film. You go back to some of the, like Argento's Suspiria and the way he used color in that film. I wanted to talk to you about the thematics of your color choices, and specifically just the different designs and the way we see color in the film, what you wanted those colors to kind of get across to your audiences, and kind of how that became a visual storytelling tool for you as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the whole, what we wanted to reach visually and then even sound wise was like these ecstatic moments, these ecstatic, like sort of overwhelming to the eyes and to the, and then also with the sound sort of vibrationally, what's happening internally to the audience member, to try to get you to a place that you could sort of feel what the character is experiencing. So that not just that you are experiencing what it feels like to reach this ecstatic sort of moment, which would be, a mix of euphoria and fear and excitement and curiosity and like everything all at once, basically because I've read a lot about near-death experiences and sort of what they theoretically think the body does and what the experience of near-death experiences are, that like the body's being flooded with all of these hormones, right? That your body's being, you've got serotonin and cortisol and all of these things just flooding your body all at once. And the closest I could get to that was just like overwhelming colors and sound in a way. Just the color scheme though, like what Jay and I were playing with is juxtaposing that these ecstatic, vibrant, almost DMT like experiences, to and that's another thing that's flooding your body when you die is DMT. Then you're in your perineal. Is that the name?
You tell us.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Does that sound like a real thing?
It sounds like a real thing.
Sometimes I say words and I read it, but I realize I've never said it out loud. Do you know what I mean? Like I read it and then I
understand.
And then when I go to say it, I'm like, I don't know if I did that. But to reach those, but then we also wanted to juxtapose that experience with those colors and the vibrancy of those colors with that I've heard DMT heard DMT gives you, and but juxtapose that with a mundaneness and sort of like a much more sort of calm color palette when we pop out to reality and see like what it actually looks like,
Also, just the vibrant Technicolor aspect of it too. Like to me, it brought me back to like films of the 50s, that where you don't see people experimenting with those bold colors that often. So maybe it's just hard to film them or hard to capture them with cinematography. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
it's hard. It also can, I trust Jay so much with this film, and then and so also Mary Ellen, but and everyone involved in the film. But like this is the kind of film when we were making it where Jay would say, "Is this too far?" And I'd go, "No, let's keep like pushing," but it can. I understand what you're saying, but Jay and I, a lot of the stuff that we shot early on was all on film. So Jay has this like unbelievable, not knowledge of not just shooting on film, including we actually did use Technicolor in certain parts of Sun Don't Shine for some of the sunset shots and some of the stuff we were filming mermaids. We used Technicolor, and then so he has this amazing base in actually understanding every single kind of film there is and what the effects are, but also he knows how to translate that into the digital, into the camera. So I what could be really tacky and look really bad, I trusted Jay would that he knew more than me. Always hire people that know more than you do.
Well, you've been mentioning all these names, and I think it's fantastic, the collaborative nature of the this whole process that you were able to go through. It struck me when I saw Adam pop up, Adam Wingard in a scene, and I was like, oh my God, I love You're Next. And it brought me right back to being at South by and seeing that as a midnight film and just, the immersion of that. But I want you to be able to talk to, because of the ability of people that you've been able to work with over the years, whether it's Soderbergh or even Ridley Scott or Adam, how collaborative the film community is, and all the things that you've sort of pulled from them over the years that you find yourself applying now when you're getting deeper into features and experimenting with different things like that.
I mean, that's the Soderbergh included, Adam included, Joe Swanberg, Chris Ray, who also has a movie out that I'm plugging.
She was on our show.
I love her so much. We did a joint interview.
Yes.
She's like one of my best friends.
Oh yeah, we had her on the podcast. She's already she was on a couple months ago. Yeah, I
love her so much. And again, these are my friends. So when I say that, when I'm naming, and Josephine Decker, and who also has worked with Adam and Joe, and these are my friends. One, but also there's Soderbergh and everyone that I've worked with, there's just this sort of spirit of DIY, spirit of, if you can't, if somebody's not making your stuff, then you just do it yourself, and I think, and it's really, a lot of people say they have it, but then there's people that actually do it, and I say this knowing that it was years of me being incredibly poor and basically volunteering to just make stuff with people. And I say this, and I say incredibly poor, but I don't want to romanticize it, because I remember back in the day, my boyfriend was like, can we go eat something? But I didn't have money. And I remember snapping at him and going, can't you just go to bed hungry? Like I was so angry at the idea of eating, because I was just I can't afford it. I have to make movies. But that's not a healthy way to be. I was
going to say, do you encourage this?
No, I don't. My credit was terrible. I mean, I basically everything became about how do I make movies? I was like, you can get free money, and people are like, credit cards aren't free money. I was like, you can get free money to make movies on these things, and then people were like, you have to pay it back, and I was like, I don't understand. But yeah, I mean, the whole, what's really beautiful for me with this film in particular is like everyone that's in it in some capacity I've worked with, and there's so much love in it for me, even though it's extremely dark. It's like, it was so easy to explore this sort of strange idea with people that I trust and love, like Adam Wingard, or even at the end of the movie, James Benning, who's an experimental filmmaker. I've worked with him before. And, it was basically, I don't know if you can tell, because obviously the lead character's name is Amy. It's a very meta movie for me. It's a very meta, and it feels like the entire cast and even the crew was some aspect of me personally.
Interesting. Amy, I'm very interested in asking this, and this is probably a ridiculous question, but I've always wanted to ask a director this. How do you achieve, what is the setup when you're trying to get someone to have a close-up single tear drop? Like in the sense of are you just setting a camera up and then having the person just do that over and over and over again? Is it something they can do on command, like an actor can do on command like that? Or how do you achieve or direct that kind of a moment in a film?
You just cast Caitlin Shield.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
Or Jane Addams. Like, you just cast brilliant people. I mean, yeah. I mean, I gotta be honest. Like, it's funny because Jane does it really well. Kate does it really well. I will say I can do it too. But it's yeah. You just cast.
What do you say to somebody to get them there? Like what are you like? Like, what do you, like, for example, since you said you can do it, I'm not going to ask you to do it, obviously, but what do you have to do as an actor to go there to achieve that moment? It's such an interesting thing to me.
I don't know what they do, but well, one, like, I also don't expect them to do it. I want them to do whatever in the performance in the moment feels like the right thing, you know? I don't want them to ever, because one of the things that like, one of the things in acting or in real life in general is like, people don't try to cry. Right. It just happens, right? And you actually try to resist crying. So like, if I've found as an actor, like, if somebody's like, I really need you to cry, it becomes incredibly difficult, you know? And also it becomes very forced because you're just thinking, I'm going to cry, as opposed to just allowing whatever feelings rise up and then maybe something happens. So like, it's less so trying to get like a single teardrop, and it's more about allowing the space for the actor to feel whatever feels correct in the moment, you know? And I was going to say, technically speaking, one of the ways that you do that is just you like, or technically speaking, what I do is I just like, I tense my body up. I make sure before the take that I don't blink, and I just fixate on something. I'm doing it right now. And like and right before the take goes, I just release it. Like, I just like do a deep breath and release everything. And it just inevitably, I just start crying. Wow. I mean, not emotionally, but like, there's a psychosomatic thing that happens, right? So like, you just like release, or this is my technique, by the way, release. And then your body, because you start tearing, and if you allow it to come, you know, then like your body's like, I'm upset, like, you know, and then it's easy to sort of roll with it. And then I also find that like, the more you try to stop the crying, the more it comes. Like, your body, it's a really strange thing that, I don't know. Everyone has a different technique. Wait, speaking of crying, can I just share this real quick? And speaking of the beautiful collaborative, my production designer, Ariel Vida, I might cry talking about this. She just came by this morning and dropped off the most thoughtful present that I've ever received. And she is the sweetest person. And she's like, she thinks about everything. Anyways, she's like, oh, it's just something that I made for you. And this is in the movie. So this is the plates that Jane has, where she takes them out and she looks. And so it's these little glass plates. And she went in, I don't know if you can see it, but they're little stills from behind the scenes. Oh,
the clapboard. Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
yeah,
there's that, but there's dozens. There's dozens of them, and it's all just behind the scenes. Like, this is Tunde's face.
Oh, that's amazing.
And Tunde has a single tear moment too.
Yes,
Tunde has
exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. Tunde. Everyone's got a single tear moment in the movie.
But see, it's still valuable that you as an actress knows that there's a process to it. So as a director, you know, to help your cast get through that, you know, whereas there are certain directors who maybe have never acted before. They might not even know the process you have to go through or how difficult it might be to get to that. I think that makes your insights into your filmmaking so valuable.
Yeah. Well, it's just trust. Do you know what I mean? I find that like, it's like in any job, if you have a boss that's micromanaging you, it's impossible to do your job. Mm. You know what I mean? And so like, but like, I always flourish, and this is outside of film. I always flourished in jobs, or I guess I could say this because Steven did the same thing with me on Girlfriend Experience. Is like, he's just like, do your job. I respect you. You're smart, and like, whatever. And it's the same thing with people with the actors, and the same thing with cinematography and all this. is like, I hired you because I respect you. So take as much space as you need to do your job. And I'm not going to sit there and like tell you exactly moment to I'm not going to go in and get the single tear moment and be like, this is what I do, like, like lead them through an exercise. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I think we're going to run out of time, Amy, so we're going to have to say goodbye.
Okay.
But thank you so much for joining us on the show. We really appreciate your time.
Of course. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. And thank you for showing us that gift. That was really cool to see that.
Isn't it? I cried.
So
That's what I was saying. I cried. I burst into tears when she gave it to me because it was so thoughtful. I mean, it's really something cool. Like 36 slides. So anyways.
It's amazing. Well, Amy, thank you so much.
Though, of that special experience. That's so outstanding. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course. Yeah. Okay.
Bye, Amy.
All right, take care.
Bye
now.
Take care.
Thanks. Obviously, we want to thank Amy Seimetz for coming by and spending some time on the ReelBlend podcast. Now, let's move on to Amy Adams, who we were discussing because of this week's poll, and a film that she has coming out that has a lot of potential and is one of those directors who back in the day, I really followed everything that they did, which is Joe Wright. So Amy Adams is doing a film with Joe Wright. It's called The Woman in the Window, and it's going to go to Netflix, according to IndieWire. It was a Disney Fox property. Fans of the project that were looking forward to seeing what these two are going to do together were kind of left in a limbo because after Disney acquired Fox, they weren't quite sure what was going to happen with this film. And now Netflix is picking it up, which could mean it reaches theaters by the end of the year. So we'll find out what's going to happen with that. I feel like I'm losing a little bit of faith in Joe Wright. I loved Joe Wright right off the bat with Atonement and his version of Pride and Prejudice. Yeah. I liked Hannah a lot. I loved his Anna Karenina. Yeah. I didn't love Darkest Hour. I think you guys both like Darkest Hour more than I did.
I liked it, but didn't love it. I felt like it was more of a vehicle for Gary Oldman to kind of chew the scenery a little bit. It felt more like Gary Oldman's movie than Joe Wright's movie.
Okay.
But no, I think more often than not, I like his stuff. Even whenever I'm not a fan, it's still like I don't dislike like The Soloist. I don't dislike The Soloist, but like I'd put it in the weaker. Like, but if that's like one of his weaker movies, then that's still a pretty damn good filmography.
Well, and the one that
Joe Wright's Dunkirk moment is amazing.
What's his Dunkirk moment?
Oh, I thought I was cutting you off. Sorry. No, no. Well, he had another Dunkirk moment in Atonement. The whole beach scene in Atonement.
Oh, gotcha. Yes.
Don't they touch on Dunkirk in Darkest Hour?
Probably.
Isn't?
I feel like I remember there being like there was a joke that you could cut together Dunkirk
and Darkest Hour
and Atonement, like to make like a Dunkirk.
But the 7-minute oneer in Atonement is on the Dunkirk beach. It's a masterpiece.
I don't think I realized that was the Dunkirk beach.
Yeah,
because it's been forever since I've seen Atonement.
That feels like another picture that I really want to revisit too, because I love Joe Wright back in there. So I loved Joe Wright so much at the time that I got an invitation to go to the set of Pan in London, and you had to leave right from San Diego Comic-Con in order to get there for like the Monday after all that ended. And I said to my CinemaBlend bosses, I was like, I really want to go. They were like, you're crazy. Like, we're going to do Comic-Con for 4 straight days, and then you're going to get on a plane and go to London. But it was amazing. I mean, like, he built practical pirate ships.
Wow.
And he had an entire soundstage that was built for Neverland. And if you remember, there was a scene with like trampolines where Rooney Mara and all the Lost Boys were bouncing around on trampolines. Like, that was all practical. Everything was there. He was so excited to walk us around through Neverland. And then we got to watch Hugh Jackman as a pirate, like on a ship, like doing these like sword fighting type things. It was pretty amazing. It was worth going, but I just feel like I've lost a little bit of touch in what Joe Wright's trying to do. So I hope that this movie will bring us back around. Do you guys know anything about it? Do you know anything about what
I remember seeing the trailer thinking like, it looks like the kind of story that would be a book that's sold at the airport.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a very specific type of book that's sold at bookstores and airports, like quick paperback mysteries that you can fly through while you're stuck on a plane. Well, and this strikes me as that.
I'm pretty sure, isn't it based on a book?
And it was probably sold at an airport.
Yeah, Lauren has the book upstairs.
What was the Emily Blunt one too? That also
Girl on the
reminded
Train.
me.
Also, yeah, girl, which also like was sort of, to me, like they all kind of fit under this umbrella of like the kind of like, oh, like I need to kill 3 hours on a plane. I'm going to pick up this quick mystery.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give Joe Wright and Amy Adams a little bit more credit than that, and hopefully they're able to pull something together. So Netflix sweeps in, grabs that for distribution, according to IndieWire. And I don't know, just with the way that this award season is going to shake out, it's going to be really interesting to see the next few months, like how things play out in terms of streaming things are readily available. If we get back into theaters, like it was interesting to be part of a Dune conversation recently where they talked about the fact that they're still aiming for Christmas. Like Denis is trying to finish in time for Christmas. They're staying optimistic in terms of that. So
are they working from home?
Yes. There's homes in Los Angeles and
because it's
Vancouver.
done filming. Yes,
it's done filming. He wanted to go back and do some reshoots. There's certain things he wanted to pick up, and I think Oscar Isaac was discussing in an interview part of his beard that he had to grow back because it had to be a certain length in order to match the reshoot parts, and so he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do it in time. Gabe is asking, do you have any expectations with all these festivals starting to release their slates, how that will change the award season? So far, right now, nothing that's been announced for Toronto or New York. The one that stood out to me was Regina King's movie, One Night in Miami.
Yeah, which Amazon bought?
Yes, and is about, it's Muhammad Ali, and it's
Malcolm X,
and they're all together in one spot?
Yeah.
Like a true event?
Yeah, it was like one night that they all hung out together.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
And this other Netflix one with Amy Adams feels like one that would go the festival circuit if there was going to be a festival circuit of any kind.
Didn't it do that last year though? Because it's been held since last fall, I think.
Oh, was it really?
Did it go through the festival circuit?
No, nobody saw this one yet.
Really? Okay.
Not yet. So I don't know. That's a good question, Gabe. I have no idea. So that's the main talking point, but it's a project that we will definitely keep our eyes on as we're moving forward. So we wanted to keep a bulk of this show reserved for this week in movies because there's a lot of stuff all of a sudden that's coming to streaming, and the boys have had an opportunity to do a couple of really cool interviews, and we're catching up with a couple of movies that have been around for a while, including I Used to Go Here, which you can go back and listen to our interview with Chris Ray based on it. The floor is Jake's to start off with, because Kevin, did you see The Host yet? Did you see Host? I have a streaming link for it, and I know it's short. Jake, you were losing your mind over this.
I watched it 2 nights in a row. I watched it by myself Saturday night, and then turned around and told my girlfriend, when we get home, we have to watch this. It's absolutely fantastic. It's 56 minutes long. It's available on Shudder, on the streaming app Shudder, which is like a horror app. And it was filmed during quarantine, so it's really probably the first, I don't know if you would call it major. I think it's picking up steam, but I'd say like the first major movie that's come out that not only was shot during quarantine, but like is sort of about the world. You know, like they reference the fact that like they can't go anywhere, and one of the girls coughs, and everyone's like, oh no, you can't cough, can't, you know, like it's very much references the fact that everyone's stuck at home, and it's this group of 5 girls that decide that they are going to participate in a seance. And then things just kind of start happening. I turned out the lights. I waited till it got dark, really kind of immersed myself in what the theatrical experience would have been like, because I feel like with horror, you really need to do that. And I was legit, so much so that there were moments where I would have to like pause it just to kind of get my stuff together. Like I think it was 56 minutes. I think it probably took me 70 minutes to actually finish it, because I kept having to pause it just to kind of be like, really? Like, it was actually legit scary. And then I watched it with my girlfriend Amanda last night, and she hit me multiple, like, why are you making me watch that? Like it scared her. And so, yeah, I'm super into it. I loved, like, you know, it couldn't have cost that much money, but there's some real shots in there where I went like, how did they do that? I mean, the whole thing also takes place through a Zoom session. And I tweeted about it late Saturday night, woke up Sunday morning to find that a majority of the cast had started following on me on social media. So I just reached out to them. I was like, hey, like, can I talk to you guys? Because I feel like this thing's about to blow. And even like today, especially, I've been seeing people start talking about it. New York Times gave it a great review. A couple of people that we all follow from the film Twitter world have been going nuts about it. So if you get the chance, I don't want to like endorse watching it this way, but Shudder offers a 7-day free trial. Okay. So if you really want to watch it, but like don't want to necessarily like pay for the trial, like sign up for Shudder, watch it a couple of times, and then just cancel the free subscription.
See, because I'm out of the loop. I don't even know how to get Shudder.
It's an app like you would any other streaming service.
Okay. But you don't need a subscription. Oh, you do need a subscription.
Well, yeah, you sign up for it and then just cancel it when before the 7 days is up.
Okay. So Jake recommends that you cancel Shudder after you've watched.
I'm just saying, I got enough apps. I don't need to pay $6 a month for something I'm not going to use.
All right, I'm going to throw it to Kevin then to break the tie on American Pickle. Kevin, how'd you feel about an American Pickle?
It was interesting. It was one of those movies where I thought the premise was interesting as the film kind of expands. I thought it was a lot darker than I expected it to be. I was really, I don't know. I went into it with the idea, the bit of the movie is really funny, but then as the film progressed, I couldn't get over questions I was having about what went down. And here's what I'll say. The trailer tells you this. Seth Rogen's character falls into the pickle juice and the brine, and he's preserved for 100 years. Why did they leave his body in there for 100 years? Was the first question I was wondering.
Right.
Which is
because he falls in front of a lot of people.
Right.
Yes.
But why don't
they shut the factory down within an hour.
Yeah.
Right. But see, here's the thing. I'm not trying to be that persnickety guy who watches a movie.
No, I'm with you though. I'm with you.
There's certain logic that I can't look past.
Yes, thank you. I mean? Thank you. That's it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But no, I agree with you 100%. And I think you can do that without being like the nitpicky film critic. Right. I agree with you 1,000%.
That was the whole thing. And Lauren and I were watching it. We're like, why are they glossing over these very important pieces of information? I mean, here's the thing. They could have come up with some explanation as to why he was preserved in there for 100 years. And I feel like when a movie loses you like that, for an instant where you have to judge or question its logic, I know Jake had this issue with Us, and I think that there's certain things where, as a film goer, you try to be lenient with the movie and work with it and try not to be I understand this is a work of art, someone created it, there's reasoning behind it all, but as a viewer, as a narrative storytelling audience member, as I'm watching it, you cannot get past certain things. You know what I mean? And as the movie progresses, you start going, but I really kind of want to know how are they going to explain this at some point? Why they left his body in there for 100 years? He just randomly woke up randomly one point. So, and again, it's a ridiculous premise. This is like questioning the car crashes in Fast and Furious, but those work in the world of Fast and Furious. This bothered me. But that being said, so just to round up my review though, I thought the film was actually, it was pretty good. And I say pretty good because I think Rogen's performance is absolutely brilliant. I mean, he does a great job playing both characters. And there are some really, really interesting emotional meat in the movie, if I could use that word. It's a layered film. It's a film that has a lot to say about social media, about the world, about the way we view people. And I think at the end of the day, Rogen does deliver a very good, solid, emotional performance as both characters. I just didn't love the direction that it went in with the competition aspect of it. And that's all I would really say about it. I just didn't, I didn't like that part. So for me, it's gorgeously shot, the 4x3 in the beginning and then the wide shot out into the present day. Very cool stuff. And Jake and I were texting earlier, the visual effects and how they actually put this thing together. I mean, Rogen shot the entire film with the beard, then went back and shot the entire movie again with the shaved face. And then one thing he told me today in the interview, I was telling you guys this over text. I said to him, I was like, well, what happened if you needed a pickup shot for your beard stuff and you already shaved it off? He goes, there was a 15-second bit in the film that I wanted to get in there. So I had to grow my beard out for 10 months straight to film a 15-second part in the film.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
The dedication that goes into the production and it's very well done from a production standpoint. I just didn't think the story was that great.
So I understand what you guys are saying. I was just so blown away by his two. I'm glad you singled out his performances. Amazing. Because I had actual disconnect in forgetting that it's the same actor. Yeah. The one character, Herschel, who's 100 years old theoretically, and Ben, who he plays now, who's so modernized. That's the joke, of how different they are, and their performances are so good off of each other that I can't wrap my brain around the fact that it's Seth Rogen playing off of himself.
Rogen said that because I asked him today. I was like, "What? Like, you know, you're playing multiple characters in the film. Like, over the course of the history of movies, like, what are some of your favorite performances by an actor who plays multiple characters?" And one of the things the one that I will go to always is Nutty Professor. No question, him around the table. And his go-to was funny enough, was Coming to America. And he said that when he saw Coming to America for the first time, he didn't realize that Eddie Murphy was
like
playing
in the barbershop
character. Right. He had no idea. Like he said, like you just said, the disconnect where you can't believe it's the same person. And you actually, until the credits roll. And like for me, that was Armie Hammer in Social Network.
Yeah.
When that movie ended, I didn't know that there were one person playing two people. I thought it was two actors who just happened to be twins.
And there's a bit in the beginning of American Pickle where if they did more of this, I think it would have been funny. I don't want to give away all the jokes in the movie, but there's one point where Herschel, after he gets woken up out of the brine, has to go before like a news conference. And he says, like in his narration, he's like, the scientist explained it to everybody. And they don't tell you what the scientist said, but they cut to the journalists and they're all like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it was a funny way to just explain, like, hey, we're not going to give you answers.
But
like, this is just a goofy comedy.
And to Kevin's point, but my issue with the movie is that it doesn't follow through. It doesn't logically think out the premise. Like to me, like okay, if the premise of the movie is he was like pickled for 100 years and then they found him, like, is it ridiculous? Of course, but like that's the premise of the movie, so I'm going to go with it. Sure. But then it just, to me, it doesn't logically follow that premise. There are things that happen later in the plot that you sort of go like, well, that doesn't make, like, everyone just sort of forgets that happened to him.
Yeah,
and
why wasn't he the most famous person on the planet?
Exactly. He would be the most famous person on the planet, and then he does things that people get upset about, and he says things that are inappropriate, you know, this or that, but no one seems to remember he's from freaking 1920. He doesn't know.
All right,
he doesn't like, and so that was my issue. And I, part of me was like, oh, you're overthinking this. And then part of me was like, no, I subscribe to your premise. I subscribe to your theory, but the movie has to make logical sense from that theory, from that
Jake's
premise.
right. The film doesn't subscribe to its own logic. That's the biggest issue, is that like we're not being persnickety film nerds here. We watch Back to the Future. We understand they're going back in time, and it's explained within the exposition of the dialogue, and we buy into it. I'm not saying it's not, you know what I mean? So for this one, it was like Jake's saying, it's like it distracted me so much that it actually took me out of the film throughout the rest of the movie and made me start wondering where they were going to explain this.
Two people take not to give too much away. Two people take a video of him that ends up going viral.
Right.
And it just goes viral because of the content of the video. At no point does anyone say, hey, isn't that the guy that was like pickled for 100 years?
That's what Lauren kept saying.
No one addressing the fact that like we found a dude that was pickled for, and then the world just sort of forgot about him. And then we just moved on. And then when he came back into the news cycle, like he keeps coming back into the news cycle like later on throughout the movie, and no one addresses the fact that he's from 1920. Everyone just forgets.
Yeah, think about the logic. If someone woke up 100 years later, like Captain America style, right? And like, and that would be one of the biggest news stories in the world. Yet you have this guy walking through the streets of New York City, and no one knows who he is. What that is, and it's so weird because Jake, I feel like you and I on the other side of this argument, if we had friends who were like saying these persnickety things about movies, you go, come on, man.
No, but
Terminator can't do this, and you know, people can't rise out of liquid metal and become.
There's a difference because there's the premise and there's following through with the premise. Like your premise can be ridiculous, but but for everything beyond that premise has to make logical sense to the premise itself.
It's exactly how I felt.
So none of us have seen this new documentary, but we want to put it on your radars for various reasons. It's called Howard. It's a documentary that's coming to Disney Plus. It'll be there starting August 7th. It is about you said it's an Alan Menken documentary.
Well, it's not about Alan Menken. It's about a guy that worked with Alan Menken in creating like some of the most iconic Disney songs and music of all time. But apparently he worked, from what my understanding is, he worked hand in hand with Alan Menken. And if you know Alan Menken, you know him as like, I mean, he if you grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, he wrote the soundtrack to your childhood.
Sean, did you do Beauty and the Beast junket?
No, I did not. Was he there?
How old do you think he is?
No, the new one.
Oh, the new one.
Dude, let me tell you.
The 1950s version.
Only because you mentioned Megan, and I can't wait to see Jake's interview with him, because like to have like some time with him would be incredible. This was so special to me, and again, I'm going off on a tangent only because I feel like it would be interesting. But you're talking about Alan Menken, and my mom and I danced to Beauty and the Beast, Tale as Old as Time at my wedding. Which was a gigantic song from my mom and I growing up. And when Disney did the junket for Beauty and the Beast, very similar to how Jake, you and I did the Frozen 2 junket, they had Alan Menken at a piano. And when you walked in, have I already explained this on the show before? I'm sorry if I have. Okay. And you had Alan Menken on a piano. And when you walked in, your interview was with him at the piano while he played you famous songs from like Beauty and the Beast. Which I
did that with him here in Chicago when Aladdin came through.
It's surreal the amount of songs that guy's written.
Yeah, so he has more Oscars than anyone alive.
It's amazing. So he was cool enough. I asked Disney beforehand. My mom, they let me FaceTime my mom during the interview, and he played the song for her over FaceTime, and it was like one of the most.
That's unbelievable.
It was such a weird, crazy moment for me to be able to like give something back to my mom like that, because it was a priceless moment, right? Like to be able to sit there with the creator of the song that my mom and I danced to at my wedding that we've loved since my childhood, and for him to play it right there over FaceTime and like look at my mom and talk to my mom. It was a really cool thing. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but I know Jake's interviewing him, but
I want to steal just a quick analogy to that really fast to just put things into perspective of the length that Kevin went to as the parent on the show this past weekend. So PJ has a job. He's working at Jersey Mike's, and it's one of his first like actual jobs. And so for the first several weeks that he worked there, he wouldn't let us come by, which I get, right? Like, what teenager wants their parents to come into the store kind of thing? But this weekend, I finally said to him, like, dude, I'm coming in to get like dinner. Like, I'm sick of not being able to eat subs that at a place that you're making them. So the three of us went, Michelle and Brendan and I went and got to watch PJ make a sub. And it was the best sub I ever had. Because like we went home and Michelle was like, oh my God, he was so professional. And he made a sub. And I was so thrilled at this sandwich. Kevin got the composer of a song that he and his mom danced to at a wedding and got him to do it over FaceTime. That's like here and way over here what you accomplished.
I'm 35 years old. Your son's 16 or something like that.
But like, and he's outside the room right now, and a single tear is rolling down his cheek
at work.
as he's overhearing what you're saying.
He's at work.
But what you just said is actually really interesting, because at the end of the day, you can like celebrity this, celebrity that. I had Alan Menken on FaceTime. There's still something amazing that your son made a sandwich that you completed and he completed and you ate. I mean, that it's the same analogy that I would give to like that kid watering dog shit in Palm Springs. It's the little things. It's like that wouldn't be something that might mean a lot to to Joe Smith down the street, but like to you, to your son, who's actually holding a job, who's going to his job, who's being a responsible teenager in the pandemic, made a sandwich that you are now consuming as a parent, and he's out making money and then coming home. It's a big deal, man. Don't downplay that. It's huge.
I'm gonna call out my own ignorance for not realizing that the Howard documentary is about a guy named Howard Ashman, who is a American playwright and a lyricist whose credits include Little Shop of Horrors, for which he was nominated for the Oscar, The Little Mermaid, Under the Sea, and Kiss the Girl, and all these songs, and he won the Oscar.
Oh, Menken did the music, and then this guy did the lyrics.
But I thought they both did, because Menken won 2 Oscars apiece for Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Pocahontas, and then they changed the rules so that so that I guess that couldn't happen. So that's how. So he has 8 Oscars. Menken does, but I think he worked with this guy that they made the documentary about,
Howard Ashman. And so the Ashmans are the credits after Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, essentially. And he got Oscar nominations for Friend Like Me, and he won for Beauty and the Beast, and then he got nominations for Be Our Guest and for Belle. So I mean, we should know who this guy is. I'm basically saying we should know who this guy is. And
so
his
this
documentary
is a classic case of like somebody like Alan Menken being the name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I feel like that happens a lot in comics. Like there's Stan Lee and then like Steve Ditko. People don't really.
Ditko. Yeah, Jack Kirby. People
who's the like for Batman? It's Bob Kane and who's the other? There's
Robin.
like a second guy.
It's Robin.
Fuck off. I hate this show so much.
No, you don't though. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's someone Finger. I think it's someone Finger.
Bill Finger.
Bill Finger.
Yes.
Thank you. I knew it was right there at the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
All right. So August 7th on limited theaters, including some drive-thrus, and also on VOD, is a comedy called I Used to Go Here. And we talked about this movie when Chris Ray was our guest on episode number 113. So go back and give that a listen because she was a fantastic interview. Cute comedy. It's Gillian Jacobs, who a lot of people know from Community. She's in a Netflix show called Love also. She plays a first-time author who is expecting to go out on a book tour, but the preliminary sales or the pre-sales for her novel are not good, and her publisher bails on the book tour. But she had already booked a trip to go back to her old college. That was going to be one of the first places she would kick off. And she begins to realize how much more comfortable she was in the college setting. She starts to act a little bit below her age and bond with fraternity people and, just gets herself into various troubles. But she's so damn charming. I just think she's a really talented comedian, and she has a great script to work with here called I Used to Go Here. Did either of you guys catch up with that? Kev, did you watch it?
I have not seen that.
You haven't seen that one? It's really sweet. I would check it out now that it's coming to VOD. Starting on August 7th. And again, go check out Chris Ray. Because one of the things Chris Ray talked about in our interview at the time was it was right as the pandemic was really kicking into gear and being uncertain about where it was going to play. And, she was going to go to South by. That was the thing. She had a spotlight slot at the South by Southwest Film Festival. And she really got candid about how much up-and-coming filmmakers rely on a festival like that to shine a spotlight on your film and help you get more distribution. And so I thought that was a really fascinating conversation, and I'm really glad that film got picked up and is going to get some form of distribution so people can check it out. So that's called I Used to Go Here. She Dies Tomorrow. That's Amy Seimetz's film. Obviously, we talked about that with her. I want to get to also August 7th, a director who we are hoping to get on the show sometime soon, which is David Ayer, and he has a new movie coming out called The Tax Collector. Tax Collector, I thought was, I'm not gonna say really good. I thought it was good. I liked it. I liked where it was going. I liked the characters. I probably liked the characters a little bit more than I liked the overall story. And it's similar to what David Ayer has done in the past, but also different. I say it's similar because it's set in the world of Los Angeles crime, specifically Latina gangs. It introduces this character, and this is where I found to be the most interesting, played by Bobby Soto, who is a full-blown family man, husband, father, and the movie spends a lot of time with him in that element. And then he gets together with his friend, who's played by Shia LaBeouf, and the two of them go out for their job, and their job is just to collect money from the various gangs, the drug-dealing gangs and the crime gangs, and take their cut of the money that they're owed, essentially. And you just see some horrifically violent, intimidating stuff from them when they're out in the road. And then this guy has to come back home and sort of balance that life as a career criminal. And of course, for the dramatic effect, there's competition that comes in, and how can he protect his family, and how can Shia sort of stand up for him. And Kev, you watched it, right?
I did, yeah. I
thought it really found its gear after like 40 minutes. Yeah. It took me a little while to figure out what it was, and then and then the back half of it seemed to really take off for me.
I mean, you bring up an interesting thing. To me, I loved the first 40 minutes.
Oh, really?
Because to me, I like the juxtaposition between a guy waking up in his house with his family and just a very seemingly quote-unquote normal lifestyle. And then, because the entire first 40 minutes of the film is just one day. And so he leaves his house, and then you get to go on this journey through his other world, which is just extremely fascinating because they're so completely the opposite. And then as the film kind of comes into its own, you realize that his home life is still connected somehow to his street life. And I mean, Bobby Soto, I thought, like, he played the character with such an interesting vulnerability, yet a very severe intensity. That's a really hard balance to find because the guy is very he's very understanding, right? The character is very understanding in a world where not a lot of people are understanding. And he just found that I don't know, that vibe to me was really well done. And LeBeouf was completely unrecognizable. I mean, his ears did he have like MMA ears or something like that? Did you notice like
they did look swollen? Yeah,
it was like you ever see like an MMA fighter who, I don't know what it's called, but like their ears are like cauliflower. Yeah, and like yep. I wanted to ask David Ayer why the choice of that, because Shia's ears aren't like that in real life, right? Because
no. They look put on.
So I was just interested to know, like, clearly there was some backstory given there. Shia LaBeouf's character in Tax Collector is a very interesting character because there's really no arc for him. He's just him straight through. That's a really tough thing to do as an actor, not give yourself an arc in an 1.5 hour long film, because basically this guy knows exactly who he is and he's ready to go out whenever he's ready to go out. He says that in the trailer. He's like, he goes, I'm ready. He said, basically, he's like, I'm ready to die. I'm here to do what I need to do. And when I die, it's my turn to go. And I felt like that was a really interesting character to play because there's really no emotional range for him. He's just this guy. And it's very dark, very violent, very brutal.
Dude, it's one of the most brutal
violent
films.
As all hell. Yeah,
I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Did you get the impression that Ayer was a little bit freed up from maybe like knowing it wasn't going to go to theaters? Because it is vicious.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question because it is very violent. It's like, Training Day had its moments. And I know that was Fuqua and then Ayer wrote it, but it's nasty, like really gory, like very brutal. Like imagine the gore you saw in that show, The Boys, but in a very serious tone.
Oh wow.
Like drama. Like the violence is that explosive, like that gross, that like loud and nasty, but in the midst of a drama versus a boys show where it's a little bit more on the comedic side / drama, it really hits you harder, the violence, because it's so much more brutal.
And the one thing Tax Collector did for me also is it made it feel like crime and the threat of crime is only like one step removed from wherever you are in Los Angeles. Like it almost felt like it had permeated every aspect of the city, where there's almost like no safe place you could go. And I kind of wonder if that's how other cities are also, where, you often say like, oh, there's a certain area of the city where you probably shouldn't go to because it's crime ridden or it has a lot of problems.
Certain area?
Certain David Ayers. I don't know. I just got the sense that in Tax Collector, the crime had seeped into almost every level of Los Angeles. And so I do hope we get him on the show because I would love to talk in depth about Tax Collector. But,
and also people who haven't seen End of Watch, highly recommend End of Watch. Obviously, his amazing script for Training Day. I mean, he is Fury was fantastic. I think Shia's performance in this film was the one that really I thought Bobby Soto was great though. I thought he was fantastic.
He is really good. Yeah. And I feel bad because David Ayer's getting a lot of heat because people think Shia's the lead. And they're saying, hey, as a filmmaker, you have an opportunity to cast a person of color in your lead. And David Ayer's like, I did. Like Bobby Soto is the lead. And Shia actually plays like there's a type of person in Los Angeles that was born white, but grew up around Latina gangs and almost emulates them to a certain extent. And there's a term for it that David Ayer uses all the time. And David Ayer's like, Shia is not pretending to be, he's not playing a Spanish character or a Mexican character. He's a gringo, he calls him. He's a gringo who just has been around gangbangers all his life.
Of his environment. He is what he grew up in. Like, and it's a really interesting point that you say that because I when the film first started, I said to myself, oh my gosh, is Shia LaBeouf going to get in trouble for this character? Yeah. And it's quickly understood that he grew up in an environment that's who he is. He just that's how he speaks. That's how he gets around. And it's a very interesting point because I was a little concerned. I was like, are they going to go after Shia LaBeouf for this? Because that's the point of the character. He just was raised there.
It's definitely worth seeing just for the character work alone. I would say check it out. So that's everything that's coming to streaming over the next couple of days. So let's get to this week's Blend Game. And we want to leave some time to let this breathe as well, too, because we're going to have some explanations. We're playing #MovieGenreBlend. So it's a twofold thing. You have to tell us what your favorite movie genre is, and then within that genre, you have to tell us what your favorite film of that type is. And we have the freedom to go in any sort of different direction that we want to go in. And so I'll start with Kevin. Kevin, tell me your favorite movie genre, and then the movie that represents that genre so well.
I feel like 90s action movies, is that a proper genre?
Yes, of course
cool.
It could be a genre.
Because it implies a certain type of movie.
I like it.
The 90s action movies that was my favorite time of cinema. I mean, like, you're talking
Nick
to someone,
Cage.
Dude, Nick Cage in his prime. To be honest with you, I could go through a zillion movies within this area. I just rewatched Broken Arrow the other day, which actually
I love Broken Arrow.
Really held up, man.
Yeah.
John Woo style.
Yeah.
I forgot that John Travolta's basically playing his Castor Troy character in Broken Arrow. Like when he switches to Castor Troy, it's the exact character.
Did you see the meme that said that Nick Cage is going out with if Nick Cage can go grocery shopping with a mask on, then so can you. And it was Travolta.
That's pretty funny, actually. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty good. People on the internet, man, there's some really clever people out there. No, but this era was a big deal for me because I was 8 years old when I saw Terminator 2 for the first time. I'm not going to give Terminator 2 because that's just too much of a default answer for me. That would be my number one action film, but I guess that falls more sci-fi, but it's still a big blockbuster action film from the 90s. But that film was the reason I fell in love with cinema, but it was that movie that also made me fall in love with Arnold. So I actually went back and watched a lot of, obviously, his 80s stuff. But Arnold in the 90s, not only did you have Terminator 2, you had True Lies, which was one of the greatest action films ever made. The chemistry between him and Tom Arnold. So just like going through all these different action movies in the 90s, that's kind of what really made me really love movies at that point in my life. I mean, I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old, right when 92, 93, and then I'm seeing Die Hard with a Vengeance in 95. And just that 90s style of action, really normally infused with comedy, right? So you have Bad Boys 1 in that era. You have, Armageddon, I would put under this category. It's an action film from the 90s. I mean, there's just so many films that mean so much to me that came from that decade of time that fall into the action category. The ultimate one for me, no questions, Face Off. Face Off is a film that I know for a fact there was a point where I'd seen it 45 times. I kept count because I had the VHS, and I still have the VHS today. And my uncle Steve would make fun of me constantly. Every time he would come to visit me from New York, he would say, "What's the best movie ever made, Kevin?" I'm like, Face Off. Like, he just kept he was clearly making fun of me because I was 13 years old and I thought Face Off was the greatest movie ever made. Like, it was my Citizen Kane, But Face Off was that beautiful combination of brilliant performances from brilliant actors stuck in a really insanely crazy storyline that really ended up working somehow. Speaking of logic, you go back to our conversation earlier about American Pickle. I don't sit there and question the face being transferred. It's all right there
because
in the
they
movie.
take it and they run with it.
Right.
Everything post that makes sense to the premise.
And so it's funny because when the Tenet trailer dropped, the newest Tenet trailer, there's a moment at the end of the Tenet trailer where Pattinson's talking about a plane crashing into a hangar. My first thought when I saw that image was Face Off. And if you remember the beginning of Face Off, when Nick Cage is, they're on that runway after he takes out his 2 gold guns and, they're going towards that hangar and it looks like the exact same explosion and shot from Tenet. I mean, like John Woo did it in 97, whenever Face Off was. But Face Off was one of those movies where I just quoted it on a daily basis, ooh wee, you good looking, you hot, all the lines and ooh wee, what a predicament. I could seriously walk you through the dialogue between Castor Troy in prison with his brother Pollux Troy, and then there's that entire storyline of when Travolta comes to visit him in the prison and he walks in and he has the newspaper in his hand. I mean, that movie is perfect 90s action. I mean, there's an amazing sequence that is so John Woo, and obviously you have the doves flying everywhere, the beach, and then there's the funeral sequence, and that era of filmmaking was so awesome because it was all practical too. I mean, back then you're really doing these action scenes. You have squibs, you have real explosions. I saw Face Off so many times that I started picking up on the problems with it. There is literally a guy on a wire being dragged back in an explosion.
This is true. Yeah.
And it's very obvious. But honestly, man, like John Woo, that era, like John Woo introduced me to an entire different style of action. Like I went back and like found like Hard Boiled. I went back and found The Killer. I went back and, you know, obviously I saw, Broken Arrow. And then I became a big Chow Yun-Fat fan from those films, from like Better Tomorrow and The Killer and Hard Boiled. Then I found The Replacement Killers, which John Woo didn't direct. But another, you know, highly stylized 90s style of action movie. I think that was Mira Sorvino and Chow Yun-Fat were in that film as well. And to me, like that is the ultimate era personally. I mean, then you got to go to The Rock. I mean, you're talking Michael Bay at his peak. That movie is a masterpiece. I mean, there are so many films that everybody on this podcast can agree that were quintessential to that era. And that's why I like the 90s style action genre the best, because it blended comedy, action, great performances. I think Face Off ultimately will be my favorite movie out of that genre, minus Terminator 2.
Wow.
Tremendous pick. Just an absolutely tremendous pick. And I'm going to build on that slightly because my genre is buddy cop films. And I think a lot of people have, they know that my favorite film of all time is Die Hard, but this is going to give me a chance to celebrate what would be my second favorite film along those lines, and that's the first Lethal Weapon. The first Lethal Weapon to me is a perfect film. And it's one of those movies where when you watched it, or when I watched it the first time, I didn't realize how good it was because I just, like, everything works in that movie. And it's not until years later when you go back and analyze it, like when you start to put together, like, why does this work so well? And how come it fits together? So it takes the two archetypes that the buddy cop genre often does, which is just opposites that have to figure out how to work together. But you get Danny Glover, who's just so pitch perfect as the disgruntled, you know, angry, older cop, and Mel Gibson being perfectly cast as the it's like don't follow the rules cop kind of thing versus the rule follower. However, because it's Shane Black in an early script of his, and Shane Black being one of the best screenwriters that we have, he makes Riggs this psychologically broken, suicidal cop, and you have to wonder if he's faking it in order to get dispensation from the police department, or is he actually crazy? And if he's actually crazy, how can Murtaugh trust him, essentially, when you're supposed to establish some type of bond? Then you get Gary Busey as the person who they're going up against, who is also like a Green Beret. So he and Riggs are perfect killing machines going up against each other. And then there's this terrific hook in the middle of Lethal Weapon that when you look at screenplays, you think you need something to push the action forward, but it has to be earned. And there's a moment where in the middle of Lethal Weapon, you're totally on board with these two as opposing cops, but sometimes that's all that a buddy cop will come up with. They'll come up with two opposing people, but they don't give them a really good story. So there's a moment in the middle of Lethal Weapon where years later I realized, I was like, oh, this is what makes this movie genius. Roger is talking to one of his old Vietnam War buddies, and the guy is about to tell him what the whole scheme is. And it involves heroin that's coming into the docks. And Murtaugh is essentially saying to him, like, you got to tell me who your people are. Tell me who your suppliers are. And the guy doesn't get to tell him in time before he gets shot. He gets assassinated. But the bad guys think that the cops know. And so for the rest of the movie, the cops literally don't know what's happening. They don't know the story, but the bad guys think they are. So they're constantly bringing all this heat down on them to say, like, don't disrupt our plan. Don't disrupt our plan. But if they just left the cops alone, the cops wouldn't be able to disrupt their plan because they don't know what it is. And the way that escalates and builds and builds and builds to the cops, they keep going back to this one line where they're going to investigate somebody and they say, it's probably thin. And then it turns out they're right. They're dead on with what they're investigating, but they keep making the joke that it's thin. And that makes me laugh all the way through. But there's so many amazing lines in the Lethal Weapon screenplay that are so subtle that you don't even pick up on them until you've watched it a million times. Because my favorite is in the they're at a shooting range and they're blasting holes through the targets. And Riggs makes a shot that's just an impossible shot, like right between the eyes of the target. And Danny Glover looks at me and goes, "Will you sleep with that thing under your pillow?" And Riggs says, "I would if I slept." And it tells you everything you need to know about those two guys. I love the way that the end escalates to the point where they're everymen. They're regular cops who are being tortured. Riggs is hanging from the chain, and he's wet. And he tells Gary Busey says, "Mr. Endo knows more about dispensing pain than you and I have ever known, or has forgotten more about dispensing pain than you and I will ever know." And then they cut to Danny Glover, and he's getting salt poured into his wound. Like, these are just things that stick with you forever. And so every element, every aspect of Lethal Weapon stands out to me as just a perfect movie, an amazing screenplay, the best casting. I feel bad that they kept going back to the well to try and replicate that chemistry and make more. I
still like the Lethal Weapon sequels, though. Like, all the way through 4. Like, I still
They're fine.
I still think they're good, and I like 4. I like 4.
4 is amazing.
They're fine. 4 has a great fight.
Okay.
4 has an amazing fight on the pier.
That's my Joe Pesci.
The fight on the pier is unbelievably good.
Gay, why are you laughing? That was a great Joe Pesci.
They can't top
It's
the first
also
one.
your Quentin Tarantino.
No, Quentin Tarantino was slower. Okay. Joe Pesci is faster. Okay.
So I
thought
pick
you were
buddy
doing
cop
Tarantino.
films, and I pick Lethal Weapon. That's my favorite
one.
Favorite film from the favorite genre. Jake, close us off.
My favorite genre for me, it's sort of a kind of a warm. I mean, I know we talked about warm blanket, but like I love just sitting down with it and just kind of enjoying it on like a Sunday afternoon is a like creature feature. Jaws, Alien, The Thing. Because it's one of those things where I was gonna do horror in general, and then you guys got real specific, so then I kind of started thinking about it. But the thing about like a horror movie obviously can be so heavy that sometimes you're like, okay, I'm not sure if I really want to see just like people just horribly obliterated. But there's something fun about when it's like a creature, when it's a monster, that just kind of takes that heaviness out of it, so that I can get what I want from the horror genre, but don't have to feel guilty about like watching just people inflict pain upon another person. A lot of times it's sort of you get what you deserve. Like you mess with an alien on an alien planet, you're gonna get the thing shot through your head.
The alien's not the villain in Alien.
Oh, I can't do this. I can't. I can't. I just can't.
It's the mayor of the spaceship.
I can't. I genuinely can't.
Get the governor. Come on, Gabe. Get it right.
I genuinely can't. I tell you what. One of us gets to be in the room with one, and one of us gets to be in the room with the other. Like if you don't think the alien or the sharks, then you hang out with those people, because if they're totally fine, and you let me know how that works out for you. I'm not gonna do this.
Wait, Jake, who's the bad guy in Alien versus Predator?
Whoever wrote it.
Freddy vs. Jason was a good one. Who's the bad guy?
I like Freddy vs. Jason.
Who's the bad guy in Freddy vs. Jason?
It's clearly written to be Freddy, and then they make, which is the stupidest thing. Anyway, I love sort of like the late 70s, early 80s sort of creature feature. Jaws is probably, I guess Jaws, if you would consider it to be the creature. Sure. I find great comfort in horror. It's as weird as it sounds. My sister loved, and my family just loved horror movies when I was a kid growing up, and my sister would get so scared that she would force me to watch them with her, because she wanted to watch them but didn't want to watch them alone. So I grew up like watching these movies, especially like the 80s slasher. Like I had a goldfish named Jason after Jason Voorhees at the age of like 6.
Disturbing.
Oh, it was super disturbing. Like when other kids were dressing up as Power Rangers, I dressed up as Freddy Krueger. Like, you know, I literally have a Freddy Krueger glove hanging on my wall.
Dude, do you know my 8th grade project? So in 8th grade, you had to take on a project that took the entire year. You had to do all the research for it. And mine was on horror movie makeup and how it was done.
That's awesome.
With like Caro syrup, like pancake syrup, and I remember turning it into my teacher at the end of the year, and she was just like, "What is the matter with you?" Like, it had all these great visuals from amazing horror films that I just grew up on and loved. So.
When I was, and I feel like this story will exemplify how much I love sort of like creature features. When I was in 2nd grade, we had an assignment to like write a story that involved our classmates. And then especially, like we could involve classmates from other classes, you know, in 2nd grade. Because it's a small southern, you know, country town school. So there's only like 5 2nd grade classes. And we would get sent to different classes to read them in front of the class. And so I wrote a story about how me and my classmates were on a boat in the middle of nowhere, and a killer squid started chasing us and would like kill us off one by one.
Yeah.
And I would put different like kids from different classmates so that like as kids were listening, they would try to discover, wait, am I on the boat and do I make it to the end? And these and so like I was only meant to go read it to one class, and the teacher was just sitting there going like, what the hell is this? So much so that she goes, okay, I know you're only supposed to just read it to my class, but go next door and read it to that class too. And I ended up going to all 5 classes, and the kids were just sitting there like, am I on the boat and do I make it? And like, if one of them, like one of the kids found out that like he got eaten by the squid, he'd be like, no! Or if like one of the kids like found out that they made it to the end, they would like cheer. And I remember getting back to my original 2nd grade class, and my teacher was like, where have you been for like the last 90 minutes? And I was like, oh, I got sent on a tour to read this story. And they called my parents, and they're like, your son wrote a story where he killed off half of the 2nd grade class on a boat by the squid. So like I have loved like the whole like creature feature thing. Like I said, it gives me the joys of horror without the guilt of human to human horrible infliction of pain.
It?
Oh,
What's
Jaws.
your pick?
Jaws.
Oh, Jaws.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Was that clear?
Jaws. But also like I didn't want to like do, because I've talked about Jaws so much on this podcast. I didn't want to go off about how much I love Jaws. But yeah, Jaws is probably Jaws. And depending on whether or not like creature needs to be a monster. If in your eyes creature needs to be a monster, like a fictional monster, then I would probably say Alien.
Fair enough. I'm watching that Spielberg documentary. It's on HBO.
Oh, it's so good.
Which I never caught up with.
I still have it. I left it on my DVR because I watch it maybe about once a year. It's so good.
I could listen to him talk about anything. And we stopped it right after he was talking about the Schindler's List Jurassic Park 1-2 punch. And it reminds me, Kevin, please watch Schindler's List. I mean, you got to make time to watch Schindler's List. But him talking about Jaws and the mistakes of shooting it at sea. And I mean, it was like 100 days over. Oh, did you know? Well, you do know this because you watched the documentary. Like Lucas had to convince the studios to give him a shot on Raiders because by the time he'd done Jaws, Close Encounters in 1941, and he was way over budget and way over time on all 3 of those. That they were essentially like, no, we're not going to take an investment on this kid. This kid, Spielberg. Love it.
Did you see that story that's been going around recently about how, it's not in the documentary, about how Hitchcock would never meet Spielberg in person?
Yes.
I thought that's an incredible story.
He was the shark.
Yeah, he was the voice for people that don't know what I'm talking about. There's a story that came out, and someone asked, like, I guess because obviously like Spielberg was obsessed with Hitchcock and really wanted to meet him, and Hitchcock would never meet Spielberg. Yeah. And at one point they asked him why won't you meet this kid? He's obsessed with you. And apparently Hitchcock said, Universal paid me to be the voice of the Jaws ride, and like I needed the money, so I said yes. So if I meet him, he's just going to be a constant reminder of like the fact that time I sold out, and he's like, I don't want to face him because like I sold out to make money as the voice of the Jaws ride.
Hitchcock ever need money? Like, in what world did that man not make enough money? Well,
probably
off of his
because
films?
He didn't do like a premium version of his movies.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. $5 a month.
ReelBlend Premium, by the way. It's a little plugola for that. Audience picks. Okay, so Stephanie DeLise says action is her genre and Die Hard being her favorite. I'm giving you a round of applause for that one because that's absolutely correct. Aiden Erdahl says crime is his favorite genre, and he'll take either crime drama or crime thriller, with his favorite being Taxi Driver. Vicky Edwards, who we met at the DC Blend meetup, says rom-com is her favorite genre and Love Actually is her favorite choice. Michelle Garrist, who participates via the email ReelBlend@cinemablend.com, says fantasy is her favorite genre and she chooses The Princess Bride being the best and favorite example of what she likes in a rom-com. And Harry Lichtman, who we also met at the DC meetup, says he loves comedies and Airplane being his favorite. So
who did we met someone at the DC meetup who just announced today that he got a job with the NFL.
Oh, that's Raj.
Yeah.
Raj,
congratulations, Raj.
Who also came to the Chicago meetup, I think, too, because I think he was at Star Wars Celebration.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really good dude.
Well, awesome. Yes. Yeah, he just announced today he got a job with the NFL, which is fantastic.
A job at the NFL. Fantastic. And moving out to Los Angeles. Yeah. So kudos, my friend. Good luck to you.
Don't forget about us.
Next week, reach out on Twitter using hashtag. Oh, see, I mentioned her earlier in the show. Good way to tie it back around. Hashtag ReginaKingBlend.
Oh,
we're going to celebrate the films of Regina King. And can we use Watchmen? You're muted.
I think with actors, with performers, I think we can start bringing in TV because prestige TV is just too big now. not.
All right. Well, there you
Like,
go.
I mean, like
yeah.
if we were to do Cranston
performers
blend,
specifically.
to not say Breaking Bad would just seem
Yeah, what are you
Yes.
going to pick? The one where
Right.
he was the father to James Franco?
Yeah, he got an Oscar nomination. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Who did? What?
Cranston
For Argo?
for
Trumbo.
Trumbo.
For Trumbo?
Yeah.
I
Hollywood
love
movie.
Trumbo.
I saw Trumbo.
I like Trumbo a lot.
It's a film. It
I don't
exists.
remember it. You liked it? I don't remember
That
it.
was awesome. It
I
was
liked
like
it.
a great,
I actually liked
great
Trumbo.
story.
I actually
didn't
felt like
know-
there was like a weird backlash to Trumbo when it came out.
He was a communist screenwriter. Is that what it was?
Yeah, but he wrote
yeah,
Spartacus.
and he like
McCarthyism?
punched up Spartacus, or he wrote Spartacus,
Did he?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
but like
Trumbo.
didn't get credit for it, right?
I feel like every episode there's one movie I never expect to talk about, and this week's episode is Trumbo. I never would have thought we were going to bring up Trumbo. So anyway, you can reach out using hashtag ReginaBlend, ReginaKingBlend on social media. You can email us at ReelBlend@SeimetzBlend.com. That's where you can also leave us reviews. This review comes to us from Chris Hutton, who's been listening to us for a while now. Chris made us amazing cutting boards back in the day.
Yes.
ReelBlend cutting boards with film quotes on them. And he writes, okay, so he writes 100th review just so Sean can sleep. Now that was a while ago.
That's a long
because
time
we've
ago.
been past 100. And Chris Hutton writes, hey guys, this is Chris Hutton. I've already left your review from my phone, but I just got done listening to your hashtag underrated 2000s blend episode, and I heard Sean still moping about being stuck at 99 reviews. So while my wife is still sleeping, I grabbed her phone and I'm writing this just to get you to 100. Now that's dedication. I appreciate that. Let me use this opportunity to say that I still love the show over all others. I love the constant banter between you gents. You're a blast to listen to. Few quick things. Tenant will get pushed back, he says. All right, well, that's prescient. Kevin makes riddles with wordplay, not puns. The Rise of Skywalker is great. Please be quiet, Sean. Endgame is inferior to Infinity War. It's absolute blasphemy that you knocked
It
off
sounds
Die
like
Hard
someone's Team
for
Jake.
Endgame. You guys are awesome. Love this show and can't wait for more. Jake, I loved The Rise of Skywalker, so if you ever want to hop on my podcast to have a fun talk about Star Wars, I'm down. Keep up the awesome work, gentlemen. Thanks for keeping the show going during this crazy world crisis. You're helping keep us sane. Never seen Dunkirk, but I own it. he
What?
writes. Well, I don't know if that's something to brag about necessarily. You own it. Put it on. Kevin watched it 10 times in theaters, for God's sakes. Take 90 minutes of your time. Kevin, is it long? Is it 90 minutes or is it longer?
It's super
His
short.
mind is just blown right now.
It is really short, yes. It's one of
I
Nolan's
just-
shortest films.
There's life before Dunkirk. There's life after Dunkirk. Come to the other side, man. Come to the other side.
Join us, Chris, please.
Join us. We're all over here waiting for you, man.
All right, so we'll be back next week. Again, ReelBlend Premium. We are very, very excited about the content that we are putting together for that endeavor. More details in the show notes of how that you can subscribe for ReelBlend Premium and get more from your favorite ReelBlend hosts. So in the meantime, follow us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, and Sean_O'Connell. Drop us a review on iTunes. Email us your picks for Regina King Blend, and I am all out of plugs. So until next week.
Dunkirk.